What are you doing in LA?
We came out here because we had a screening a couple days ago, so it was like a first opportunity to watch the movie with a bunch of friends and some of the cast and stuff.
Oh, how did that go? Was it fun?
It was great. It was definitely emotional to see it with so many old friends and some of the actors who contributed a ton to this, obviously. So it seems like it was a good ride. Everyone enjoyed.
I enjoyed it too. I watched it. I might not have been at a beautiful screening, but I was in my home, had some popcorn, and I loved it, just so you know.
Home is where the heart is, so it's always a good spot to watch it. I'm happy to hear you enjoy it also.
I definitely did. So not only are you the director, but you helped co-write this film. And I wanted to know, what was the drive behind this project?
Well, you point out a very good fact that it was actually a script that was partially written before, and so I jumped in to kind of rewrite a lot of elements about it. And what I like to think is that we broadened the canvas, so like the tapestry of the story became bigger and really got a little bit more political, I guess, in terms of creating characters and just the nuances of kind of how this inner city and the story kind of fuses and ties together. To really examine a bunch of different types of lifestyles along the way.
For sure. And I mean, you've directed a whole bunch of stuff before, from commercials to music videos. And this is your second film, correct?
That's right, yeah.
So now that you've kind of got two under your belts, what would you say is the biggest difference between shooting, commercials, music videos to a big feature film like this?
I think almost any undertaking really is a juncture between art and commerce. It's like you have to be aware of both sides of that equation. With films, I mean, certainly you're balancing that as well, because you got to work towards a budget and work within a time schedule. Ultimately, what I like to focus on in doing narrative stuff is it's truly an actor's medium. And so, with that said, it's like you have to be certain the performances are there and that you're really exploring to understand and bring out truths and like humanity, I guess, in each and every character. Otherwise, you can have the best looking film, but it's just really, some glossy popcorn along the way that you watch,
I mean, and speaking of your cast, it's kind of a director's dream. You got some amazing actors in there. So I want to know, what part did you have to do in the casting process, if any? And did these actors kind of fulfill the idea of the characters that you had in your head?
We got really lucky on this one. It's like life is always about timing, preparation, and being in the right place, right time. And, I think we set out, in writing it with certain characters in mind, but Shea Whigham was the first actor who hopped on board. And as I like to say, he's kind of the ultimate insider actor's actor. So it's like if he's going to get involved with something, other folks come out to play because they know it's going to be a serious undertaking. So, to be honest, he was like an anchor we built from. And, from there, it was like it became a lot easier because Olivia signed on next. Shea knew Frank Grillo, and so we also had Frank come out. And then I ultimately wrote the part for Bruce Dern, and I mean that was a trip because it's like I'm such a big fan of his work, in the '70s and all the way through up until now. So it was like to write dialogue, know what it was going to sound like, and then be totally surprised on the day of, because what he brings is a really specific kind of magic with what his process is with work.
Yeah, that's got to be kind of like a pinch me moment. I mean, somebody that you looked at on the screen and then you're writing for them. That's got to be pretty incredible.
It's wild. It really was like a dream come true. And that happened again with Keith David, who's in the movie. Like I was a huge fan of his work, as a little kid, like when I was 8, 9 years old, watching Platoon, which was, a real seminal film, and the John Carpenter stuff. So, it's kind of like that scene at the end of The Wizard of Oz where Dorothy wakes up and she's like, oh, you were there too, like the Tin Man in the line. It was like, wow, this is kind of wild to see all these amazing people just coming out to create something together.
Speaking of your castmates, I mean, whenever you found out you were working with Shea and Olivia, what was that like? How excited were you?
Crazy. And I mean, they are amazing people. I absolutely loved working with them. I love this film so much. I love everyone on it. And it was incredible being able to work with them and finding out I was working with them. It was pretty cool.
Did you learn anything from them on set?
Oh, for sure. That every project that I do, every set I'm on, I definitely learn something. So for this one, I remember Shea would always tell me like these little things, and I actually I remember that I kept like a little diary on filming, and I found the diary today. I was looking for it, and I found it, and I like wrote down things like, I can't even remember. I think it was like tips
Do you
from
have it
Shea.
with you? Do you have
I do. It's like little pieces of paper though.
So cute.
But it's called Tips by Shea Whigham.
Oh my, that is so cool.
Yeah, and then it says Tips by Shea Whigham, and there's like 3 things that I kind of wrote down in like separate pages, but it says one of them was, he would like always tell me, I mean, the main thing he always said was don't get caught acting. And also less is more, and the key to acting is relaxation. And I think those were great tips that he gave me, and just being able to learn from him and learn new little things and see how he prepares for a scene, or just kind of pick up on little things. And I think it was a great learning experience, and I'm so grateful for it.
So let's get into this film a little bit. The beginning, I mean, you start off, you set the tone with this quote, and obviously the audience has not seen the film. So I wanted to read this quote because it's super impactful. So it's, "For not an orphan in the wide world can be so deserted as the child who is an outcast from a living parent's love." I mean, what made you want to start off and include that in the movie?
The beauty of Charles Dickens is, I mean, he was like a champion for like labor rights for children, you know, in the industrial era. I mean, without wanting to get too biblical, I mean, everyone is ostensibly like a lost or forgotten child until they find their path in life. So, you know, given that the story really is about the consequences of, you know, what children are and what they become along the way, in terms of like, it really has a lot to do with nature versus nurture. And you could kind of say that the main character ultimately is a kid who's struggling to protect his lost child, to understand that, you know? So, you know, it felt like it had the right tone. And, you know, I was going to go with something from like Eldridge Cleaver or something a little bit more political, but it just gets to be a little too meta along the way.
Yeah. Oh, I liked it. It started off, I was like, oh, that's what this movie, okay. And it put me in the right mindset.
Wow. Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. My
really
producing partner, Andrew Levitas, was a real champion of that quote. So we went back and forth with the tongue.
Right.
You know?
Wrote it down right away. I was like, that's
really?
The first thing I'm going to ask him. Yeah.
And it makes you want to read Dickens all over again.
Right? Yes, so true. So speaking of how the main character kind of goes through that problem, I mean, he's the good guy in the film, but it's not the normal good guy. I mean, he has his own demons, from addiction to, you know, nature versus nurture. He was raised in foster care, and he has his own demons that he carries around. So as a director, how did you make it so we rooted for this guy so much, but also he could be disappointing us and, you know, hurting us at the same time?
You kind of hit on the seminal paradox of the story, because, you know, what I loved about this type of story, because it's built out of a more noirish kind of archetype, is that you kind of have to root and align yourself with inherently flawed, morally complex individuals. And, you know, what I've really like to say in these stories, and I think they're very similar to what life is, you know, there are goods, there are bads, there's black and whites, but, you know, really everything in life happens in the shade of gray in the middle, you know, meaning like, you know, nobody's entirely good, nobody's entirely bad, minus maybe a few people out there, but that's where we really relate, you know? And so if he was just a good guy social worker, you'd probably say, why do I care, you know?
Yeah, very true. The complexity is what drew us in, because it was we're, as a society, we're kind of over perfection. We crave relatability and raw honesty. So I think you really hit that nail on the head.
You're absolutely right, Bailey. You know, and I also think it's no different than where we're at in this country right now. You know, that in many ways, it's like we have to root for people at a crossroads and just, you know, reconcile our own past with the future that we hope to build, like, as a community. So.
Absolutely. And another person you directed was Taegen Burns, who I'm talking to a little after you. So excited about that. But I mean, directing someone so young in a film with such hard subject matter, how did you kind of guide her through that?
Well, to be honest, there was not a lot of earmuffs involved, as the term is nowadays. I mean, she's a very precociously bright young girl, and it was amazing to watch her really grow throughout the process of making this. And I owe a huge measure of gratitude to Olivia Munn and to Shea, because they were able to offer a relationship with her, that really brought her in, and so you were able to work together almost like a family. So when you were dealing with the more complicated subject matter, it became part of the dramaturgy, but you had a relation point to work from.
Right.
And actors, they when they're at their best, they really offer the gift of sharing and really supporting other actors through scenes. So, but she's well on her way, Taegen. I mean, she's something else in the film, and she's such a lovely young lady.
But I mean, this film, it took you to some dark places, and you really went there. I mean, so many people actually struggle with broken homes, and you had to portray real people out there. So how did you kind of research and prepare to play a character like this? And did your castmates or director help you understand this role better?
100%. I think they really were welcome to new ideas, and were like, if you have an idea of how this scene could play out, or if you have an idea like, okay, maybe your character wouldn't necessarily say that or act like this, then say it. Like, Michele was so open for ideas, and I was able to talk about the scenes beforehand with Olivia and Shea, or whoever I was in the scene with, and I was really able to express my ideas and opinions, and just always rehearsing the scene and talking through it. And I think that really helped me be able to get into character and understand my character and what she was going through.
To end this interview, I mean, you ended the film with another impactful thing that I had to write down. 200. You just started and ended it, and I was like, okay, these bookmarks, I'm writing them down. But 250,000 children enter foster care in the United States every year. I mean, that is insane. And is that kind of, you're just opening the eyes to people? Like, what message do you want people to take away from this?
I think that it's a concept or a real social issue that is really addressed in the public sphere as much as it should be. And if we're only as good as what we are as a generation and generation moving forward, it's no different than like Obama's No Child Left Behind. I mean, we do have to be capable of shepherding and helping everyone in our country to move on their way. So for me, it's unacceptable to not be socially aware and trying to do stuff on your local level. No different than being in Los Angeles right now. It's like it's an abject disaster having so many poor homeless people on the streets. And, the pandemic has been real tough on everyone, but we all got to do our part, because we're only as good as the people next to us, I think, honestly.
There's so many things that people can take away from this film. So you're doing your part in educating people through something that they're going to enjoy on their screens anyways. So thank you so much.
So. I'm happy you enjoyed the movie so much, Bailey, and thank you for all the time together today.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much. I hope everyone goes and sees The Gateway September 3rd in select theaters and on demand. So thank you.